Welcome in everybody to a Thursday night edition of the Joe Quill Show, the final show of 2024. And Chairman of the Board liked my like my, he liked my Twitch alert that I put on there. Now I have to change it for Saturday for also eligible, and I'll have to change it when I come back from my vacation next week. But anyways, welcome in, Chairman, and welcome everybody to a Thursday show here. And you know, it is that time of the year, so I gotta joke around with that. Got a lot to talk about here tonight, as you can see on the bottom of the screen there. Um, Patrick Mahomes, uh, David Montgomery, Sammy Sosa, anything else that pops up. Give you some thoughts on 2024, my personal thoughts on 2024, and I'll look ahead to 2025 and some additional things as well. You know, we got a hard out tonight at 11 o'clock tonight because the Bleacher Brothers will be having Captain Ron will be on for Anarchy. That'll be at 11 o'clock. That will be on the Bleacher Brothers YouTube. It'll be on the Bleacher Brothers Twitch. I will raid you over to there at 11 o'clock. And, you know, so the good thing is you can do two Twitch shows. You can do two YouTube shows on the same account at the same time. I have seen it done before on Bleacher Brothers. So we will get to that here. And we'll also do the Philly Fade. Um, had an amazing turnaround from September and October, but it does look like things aren't looking too good for my pick from last night. I did give you the Chargers -3. Um, and as I just say that, uh, uh, I don't know who he is, but you know what kind of a touchdown that we have, everybody. We have a
Who the fuck is that guy?
touchdown. So Denver's up 20-10 there. And uh, I got the game on, but I'm talking to you guys, so yeah. I'll try to keep an eye on that and keep an eye on you guys as well. Uh, so just for those that are tuning in, I'm Joe Quills, uh, writer, handicapper, degenerate, whatever you want to call me at Bleacher Brothers. I also do the show, the Joe Quill Show, Monday through Thursdays at 9 o'clock. I think the Wednesday show is going to go back to 10 o'clock starting the new year. I'll let you guys know about that as we go on. Also, I have a horse racing show on Saturday mornings called Also Eligible. And Saturday, we are going to be looking at Gulfstream. And I think I am going to make my joke on one of the races. So hopefully, when the Bleacher Brothers invade Gulfstream Park for the Pegasus World Cup, that I don't get us kicked out because they hear my joke, but we'll see. But we're having fun here tonight, and I'm in a good mood tonight because I am 21 hours away from my final vacation of the year, my first ever Christmas vacation at my job. Most of the time, it the vacations just don't fall to me for Christmas week because, well, back in the old days, apparently we weren't doing it right because you're supposed to go with the vacation weeks, then the excused work days, and there's a whole formula you got to go through. Well, I think um, without without getting myself into trouble at Redacted Company, we didn't do things right. But I think the one thing is we did have a lot of um, I mean, we had a way of doing it, and I guess it was agreed upon with the office, because sometimes the agreement between the office managers and the people in your office sometimes supersede collective bargaining. But we did it one way, and then ended up doing it this way, which is the letter of the law and the collective bargaining, and it's led me to get um, couple of holiday weeks I didn't normally get. Like for example, for 2024, I got Christmas. It was available to me in 2025. I just couldn't do it um, because I let the cat out of the bag. Even though we'll talk about it on Saturday, the Bleacher Brothers are going to be invading Gulfstream Park in Hallandale Beach, Florida for the Pegasus World Cup. We do have some connections down there with some of our guys and some of the different shows that we have. Um, hopefully, who knows? Maybe even I get a job down there in a couple of years. Uh, but we have that. We have we have um, we might be doing some shows at Monmouth Park this over the summer next summer. Uh, we're looking at possibly the Breeders' Cup at the end of October, beginning of November as well. So a lot of things going on just on me, just the stuff that I'm doing. So I'm just looking at that stuff. So, but it's going to be a fun year. We'll get more into that when I um, get to that point of the show here. Um, so it is a crazy football weekend coming up. And maybe the NFL purposely didn't give us good games on Sunday. Um, maybe because of the hangover of the college football playoffs this weekend. But we do have some news of some of the players that have been hurt over the last week or two. Um, the big one is Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid said today that Mahomes is going to start against the Texans despite his ankle injury. And um, personally, I think what Patrick Mahomes said. He took a look at Carson Wentz sitting there on the bench. He goes, "Oh fuck no, I'm playing." I'm joking around, but but me being here in Philadelphia and going through the Carson Wentz era, where um, it just seemed like after he got his after he got his new contract and the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, he went very mentally soft. And what I mean by that was it just seemed like you're not even fighting for your job. And when you're fighting for your job on your field, you're screwing up more than you were before. You're just not letting things happen. And it's almost like you regressed back into your high school quarterback days instead of your North Dakota State days and then to your Eagles days. Now, maybe it's because of the knee injury he had, maybe it was all different things, but maybe the money got to his head. Who knows? But I joke around, and since Carson Wentz is a member of the Kansas City Chiefs as the backup quarterback, that is going to be the running joke whenever Patrick Mahomes hobbles off the field, like he did a couple of weeks ago. I said it on my X. I said that Patrick would Patrick Mahomes did um, looked at Carson Wentz starting to warm up. He said, "Oh fuck no," but but um, but he is going to play on Saturday. Um, Andy Reid did say that he was going to play. Mahomes has no injury designation for Saturday, which you know I guess that's okay. Um, I know that I know that New England, when Tom Brady was quarterback, when you used to have the probable injury report, you did have you did have Tom Brady on the injury report every week as probable with an elbow. I think it was an elbow. Now, we know he was fine, and you knew that they were joking around and stuff like that, but eh, but but he is but Mahomes has no injury status. I guess he's in that probable situation that the NFL does not have for an injury designation anymore. So they said, let's just take him off. So Andy Reid did say earlier today that Mahomes took a full practice workload on Thursday, which was the final session of the work week. Um, he also was a full practice participant in Tuesday and Wednesday's practices. Um, so whatever they did, I mean, maybe they had Mr. Miyagi there, sitting there, must fix leg. you know, the whole Mr. Miyagi scene with Daniel Larusso when he hurt his knee in the karate championship. Um, Reed said he did look good out there. Oh, I'm sorry. uh, he did look good out there. Uh, he moved around pretty good. So they're always looking to make sure uh, they can get out of the way, not to further any harm to them. So that's what I look at. Time's yours. And my buddy Mike knows the whole Andy Reid thing. So trust me, when you've had Andy Reid in Philly for 14 years, you can still do the Andy Reid impersonation, even though he's lot more jovial in KC than he was in Philly. I think he learned a lesson by being in Philadelphia and handling the media here. And Kansas City's media probably 1/10 as tough as the other. Uh, I mean, Kansas City's probably their media is probably 1/10 as tough as what the Eagles media is. But um, and since Andy Reid's been in Kansas City for such a long time, as well as the Eagles, Andy Reid said, "I've been through it with him before, and he amazed me every time he does it. The guy has been so mentally tough and just puts into a mindset that he was going into it from where he was a few days ago." So, um, I mean, the one thing is, when you look at everything with him, I just think that, um, yeah. So Mike agrees with me. Um, you know, and the thing is with um, Patrick Mahomes, you know, it's not the first time he's had a high ankle sprain or an ankle sprain. I'll tell you what, when he went down, and you can, and once again, no matter where you're watching me tonight on Twitch, on X, on YouTube, feel free to chime in. Um, and also, congrats to me for starting on time tonight, even though I used that longer entrance today because I wasn't completely ready. Uh, but um, you know, because I thought, even though I joked around and said, I think I said it, and Mike will probably say that I said it Monday night. Who knows? Um, I did joke around on Sunday, even saying, "Oh, Patrick Mahomes just going to get out of playing on Sunday." You know, I mean, you could joke around like that if people understand your sense of humor. And the thing is, if you get the wrong bunch of people on Twitter or X or whatever they're going to call it next week, um, if people don't get your sense of humor with something like that, then it's Kansas City Chiefs slander. No, you gotta take the joke. Like, for example, I made a joke on X yesterday. Um, Somebody had a question about Canada being annexed to the U.S. I said, joking around because of the new president coming in, who's the old president. I said, joking around, I said that Canada will build a wall and keep us out before they become part of the United States. And somebody had a smart comment. I'm like, I didn't even respond, which is a miracle to me, probably because I was working at the time. But I just wanted to say, dude, it's a joke. Get over it, okay? If you're taking my if you're taking my comments seriously, then there's something you don't understand. But then again, whether it's talking football with a joke or talking something that borders on politics, which is a politics joke more than anything else. Because the last thing I do want to talk about is politics. You are going to get people people who won't get the joke. So, um, but sometimes you say things and sometimes it just doesn't translate well on text as opposed to me saying it to you right here. So, but the one thing I will say, whether you're on X, Twitch, or YouTube, feel free to chime in. That's what we're here for, so you guys can join in on this. um, Now, DeAndre Hopkins said how Mahomes looked in practice this week. He said like he always does. um, so I don't know if Mr. Miyagi came back from the dead because Pat Morita did die a few years ago. I went, something like that. But um, but he suffered a high ankle sprain in the fourth quarter of last Sunday's 21-7 win over the Browns. Now, the way that injury looked, I'm thinking, is that a knee as opposed to an ankle? Because the way he twisted, you could see the ankle twisting underneath, but you also see the body and knee all twisting, and it was like, yeah, that does not look good. And considering it was 21-7, I mean, it was still only a two-score game. I still would have taken Mahomes out because, all right, we got this under control here. The defense has this because we know Kansas City is more of a defensive team this year. So I would say, everything's good. We got this under control. And they won. And I think what's going to happen is, and you can think what you want here, because Andy Reid has done this in the past with the Eagles back in 2004, especially with Patrick Mahomes. But Patrick Mahomes may be Mr. Miyagi said Mahomes in, Wentz out. Yeah. You can tell me and Mike are cut from the same cloth. Um, but yeah, so when I look at this, I see that a lot of, you know, I see that this could resemble the 2014. Now, you're saying, wait, the Eagles weren't in a Super Bowl the year before. They did win two Super Bowls in a row, blah, blah, blah. Slow down, let me explain. In the 2004 season, if you remember week 15, because they only had 17 weeks back then, T.O. broke his ankle on a horse collar play. That was the reason why horse collar tackles are illegal in the NFL. Andy Reid didn't want to chance it, so none of his starters played the last 2 weeks of regular season, which meant the Eagles did not play meaningful football for 3 whole weeks. Now, if Kansas City wins, they have home field throughout the play, or do they? Wait a second, let me double check that here. And that, as soon as I said that, I was like, wait a second, that ain't true. So let me just double check that here. Um, no, they would not clinch home. The only way they clinch home field is if Buffalo loses this weekend. Uh, if Kansas City wins, so you do have if one team wins, another team loses. That's how they get home field. Because remember, Buffalo holds the tiebreaker for the head-to-head win. So if Kansas City wins, Buffalo loses. I would not be surprised if we do not see Patrick Mahomes on Wednesday. Now, the thing is, some people may say, he just didn't like the way the schedule was set up and blah blah blah. He wanted out. He didn't want to play. Well, you look at the injury that he had and how it could have been so much worse. Broken ankle, torn ACL, whatever, you know, because he twisted like 3 different ways. And I mean, he almost looked like a soft pretzel. I think you at least give him Wednesday off because it is a short turnaround, even though he's played many Thursdays after a Sunday game. I think what you do is you give him that Wednesday off, but if you if you win and Buffalo wins, then maybe you have to play him, and once the game is no longer in doubt, then you take him out. But I mean, on Christmas Day that is. But that's not an easy game that they have having to go to Pittsburgh. So they do go to Pittsburgh in week 16, right? Or week 17. Yeah, they go to Pittsburgh. Okay. So I would gauge things with how the game goes because of the fact that you're looking at I mean, you're looking towards doing something that no team has done in the Super Bowl era. And I think no one has done it since Green Bay in the 60s, which is win 3 championships in a row, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Pre-Super Bowl era. Um, if I'm correct. And if I'm wrong, feel free to chime in and say, "No, dope," you know, but keep it within reason when you call me dope, because I am up for constructive criticism and stuff like that. Um, but when you look at things here, um, I would definitely say if if the game is in hand, you get them out of the game. If you have home field advantage, you definitely don't play them on Wednesday, and maybe you play them the first half of the final game of the season. Just gauge it. Um, if 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 you feel like the other team is really taking shots um, at Mahomes in the final week, okay, well, take him out. But you gotta. But Andy Reid is a guy who knows Patrick Mahomes. He knows how things are in the NFL, being in the league over 25 years. I think you don't want to see somebody get hurt, but you want to see somebody get some work as well because if they do have home field, which is pretty much a guarantee, but things can still because you never know what will happen. I mean, that's why we say the games are played on the field and not on paper or in your mind or on Madden. You know, you do have to make sure you make the right decision. So I would definitely say that you do have to keep an eye on things, even within the gameplay. If you feel the lead is safe, okay, you can take them out. You know, I think that's what you do. But we'll see because I mean Kansas City's remaining schedule isn't a cakewalk, if you ask me. Their final 3 games are Houston on Sunday or Saturday. I mean, Houston, you know, um, CJ Stroud hasn't played like he did last year, but Houston's still winning. Christmas Day they play Steelers. The Steelers. That's not exactly an easy game. And then you have the Broncos, and the Broncos may be playing for playoff positioning because if the Broncos win tonight, as I'm pointing to my TV like you see it, if the Broncos win tonight, they're in the playoffs. And they'll be the first time they're in the playoffs in 9 years since the Super Bowl year. So keep an eye on that, and we'll see what happens with Mahomes. I think if you get a big enough lead, you take him out because you're like, well, we need him for January and February. let's not mess with anything. So that's what I would think. So at least that's me. But I'm not a coach in the NFL, and I've been known to be wrong a lot more than I'm right. So, but so that is uh, the story there. We do have breaking news from South Philadelphia. No, not the Eagles. The Phillies signed free agent Max Kepler to a 1-year, $10 million deal. Um, and like I said before, it's not the sexy name, but you do get a guy who can play the corner outfield spot. So let me just check here. And he's German. Uh, he actually played in baseball Bundesliga, but he did play for the Twins for like 6 years. Um, let's look at his stats from last year. So last year, 368 at bats, 93 hits, 253 average, 8 home runs, 42 RBIs. Not impressive, but I don't know. Probably a stopgap move there. Um, did have 24 home runs in 2023. Um, I don't know I don't know anything about his injuries or anything last year. So, um, but it appears that Max Kepler is going to be a Philly. So, even though that's not really going to be in the episode notes, you did hear that from me. Um, now, here's a story that chairman of the board uh, already knows about and might be happy about uh, if he's still here. But uh, there could be a possible playoff return for David Montgomery in the Lions. And, you know, and also if you had him for over 775 and a half yards, I do have to say this to you. Because as we mentioned the other night, if you had over 775 and a half yards, you lost by half a yard. But but it does appear that David Montgomery, if they're getting a third medical opinion um, following his MCL injury on Sunday, um, he will not go on the injured reserve list. So that is good for chairman of the board and all his Detroit Lions fans. Um, but he is going to be out at least a few weeks at the very minimum. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Montgomery might have avoided season-ending surgery, and there's optimism for a potential return in the playoffs. So um, the source said it's about rehabbing and going from there. So it doesn't help us with fantasy football either. It doesn't help with a couple of things, um, but at least if you're a Detroit fan, you're happy that your double pronged attack will be back in maybe back in uh, action in January. Uh, hmm. So I had a wager on rebet on Belmont against UC Irvine, and UC Irvine won, so I lost. So, but anyways, um, initially Montgomery was feared to miss the rest of the season. Um, Earlier in the week, well, he received additional testing. Campbell acknowledged the team was leaning on doctors while in a waiting mode for the injury status. I think with the way all the injuries have been for Detroit and also how important he is to the offense, you have to you don't want to cut into the knee and then realize, oh shit, this wasn't as bad as we thought. So And that's probably another reason why you get a second opinion or a third opinion. Because first of all, David Montgomery only knows the amount of pain he has or how stable the knee is. So you do have that. Um, um, Dan Campbell said yesterday, it is one of those injuries that's unique because you need to know, is it stable? Okay. Is it fixed or will it scar? Then be certainly stable for now and for later, and then you've got to rely on him. Like, hey man, I'm good. I can do this. So if a combination certainly the doctors then him as well, where he thinks he can go with it and protect himself and play at a high level. So we're in a holding pattern, which is as of right now is a positive. Uh, so. So the Lions do get a positive after all the injuries that they've had, despite the 13-1 record this year. It is 13-1, right? Yeah, 3 games left. That's right. See, it's just that time of the year with me where I've got my mind on other things. Um, but like I said, they have been the Lions have been severely bitten by the bug this year, the injury bug this year. They have 21 players currently on injury reserve, 16 defensive players, which is also the most in the NFL this season. Montgomery, as I said, 775 yards rushing as a team high, 12 touchdowns. Jameer Gibbs, who's going to take the bulk of the work, going to take the work that Montgomery had. He had 1,047 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns and 11 touchdowns. So um, Gibbs is disappointed by the injury, but he has no worries picking up the slack. Um, um, the team has confidence in Gibbs being the lead horse. Um, Gibbs' mindset hasn't changed. It hasn't changed since losing Montgomery. Um, he said his mindset's the same. I've been doing this my whole life. I don't think of it any differently. So it's good that you have that mindset. Um, but I mean, the one concern is, and of course, I'm sure we can discuss this for I mean, we could probably discuss this all the way to 11 o'clock and not do the other two stories I want to talk about. I'm even going to veer away from sports for something I saw here earlier today. But, um, and ladies and gentlemen, we got to see something that hasn't happened in a long time in the NFL. Dicker the kicker got a free kick field goal. And kudos to Jim Harbaugh and his staff for knowing that anytime you have a fair catch on a punt, you can go with the free kick there. So good for him. 21-13 at the half, or yeah, 21-13 at the half. So Chargers are within shouting distance there. Um, but going back to Detroit, everybody, everybody is thinking, oh well, we're 13-1. We could still do this. At least I think that's what they would think. But I would think that a lot of a lot of people think, especially, and I'm not saying it because of my Eagles fandom. Um, you wonder, you wonder how much more this defense can take. Um, and even though their offense scores a ton of points, you know, when you have 16 players on defense out, I mean, you're basically starting your fourth string. I mean, I'm over exaggerating, but you get the point. You wonder how much more they can take. And I think that I think that you put even though the offense has done uh the offense has done their job all year, sometimes you have to wonder, just like what I say about Kansas City. I say about Kansas City, they have to eventually lose a close game. It's just law of averages. You're going to have a game where, like even with the Houston game, where their offense wasn't exactly clicking. Jared Goff had 5 interceptions, but they still found a way to win. Then um, you had the game with Buffalo. They're scoring all kinds of points. It's just that they gave up a bunch more. So even though they're 13-1, I think your defense does need to. I mean, I hate to say a 13-1 team saying their defense stands up, but you do have to realize that maybe that things are just you know, and like I used the analogy the other day, maybe the team is so good, maybe the team is so good that it's like a sign from the gods that no, you're not supposed to win. I said it about video games. You'd be playing Madden. Next thing you know, you lose 4-star players because oh, we're gonna give you the major injury bug here. So, but you do have a lot of um, things going on, especially in the defensive end. And I mean, if the Eagles got to play in Detroit, they got to play in Detroit. They're a loud bunch, but I will say this: the 3 posters that they have, oh, they're down. You know, I'd be more worried about the sound. I'd be worried about the fans holding up a 3 poster. You know, maybe if they had a middle finger poster instead. Uh, but I don't really have much room to talk because the Eagles' passing game and blah blah blah. Um, but you could see all kinds of things going on with that, and um, you know, I just wonder what people think in regards to the injuries and everything like that because I just feel like that there's a possibility Detroit could be in trouble. And if somehow Minnesota wins the division and they have the same record as the Eagles, Minnesota gets the number 1 seed over because of strength of victory. So you need all kinds of crazy stuff to happen in the Central or the North, I should say, to get home field right now. But I still think that the division is in reach. Um, it's just that right now, the Lions uh, have the tiebreaker because of conference record because they lost to Buffalo, who obviously is an AFC team, and that helps them because the Eagles lost both their games against the AFC North champion Philadelphia Eagles. I know what you're saying. Wait a second, they're in the NFC East. What are you talking about? Let's see. Actually, could be AFC champions because they beat Jacksonville as well. So they beat Jacksonville. They beat Cleveland. They won in Cincinnati. They won in Baltimore, and they beat Pittsburgh. So, sometimes these AFC games, even though you win them, sometimes they hurt you when it comes to these tiebreakers. So in this case, it's actually hurting the Eagles because guess what? Even though you're probably not going to win, you probably would lose the tiebreaker if you had the same conference record as the Lions. You just go right down the list. It's just that it just happens that way. So, uh, but but we got 3 weeks left in the season, and I'll give you my picks at the end of the show, and hopefully we do get some winners here, and hopefully, you know, I mean, I hope the Eagles win the Super Bowl, but I'm sure the Lions still think, hey, we're going to win. We've never done this, and blah blah blah. And now there was a thing here. Um, they called it the curse of Jim Kelly. Now, what do I mean by that? Since Jim Kelly lost 4 Super Bowls in a row, and I actually heard it on Facebook this morning because I was up early. If you debut as a starting quarterback in the Super Bowl, you play in your first Super Bowl and you lose. That quarterback, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, those are the two in the NFC. Those those two quarterbacks and those two teams have never gotten back to the Super Bowl with them. Now, what threw Action Lab for a loop was that John Elway, he debuted with a Super Bowl. He debuted in the Super Bowl with a loss, went to 4 Super Bowls, and then finally won two. But they they missed something there. But the thing is, John Elway, his first Super Bowl was before Jim Kelly's Super Bowl, so he's not part of this jinx. So, um, so there is the Super Bowl, the Jim Kelly Super Bowl jinx apparently, and I don't agree with it, uh, but we'll see. But well, talking about jinxes here before I get to my next story, just where Mike knows about the horse racing jinx. Sometimes Mike does it to me. Uh, my dad used to do it to me all the time. And hopefully, AJ and I on Saturday will not jinx each other because on Saturday, AJ will be back for Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. for Also Eligible. And we will be looking at Gulfstream Park. And hopefully, we don't jinx each other. I'm going to nail down the races tonight or tomorrow morning. I'll text them and I'll say, hey, races 3, 7, 9, 10, whatever. So we'll take a look at those races at Gulfstream and get you ready for weekend racing. There's also a race at Fairgrounds, which is the opening of the um, opening of the Louisiana Road to the Kentucky Derby. So keep that in mind as well, even though we won't be looking at that. Um, so just want to let you know about all that. Um, so Saturday 10 a.m. It'll be on all the Bleacher Brothers video platforms. I also have to remind AJ to reset up the Twitch for Bleacher Brothers so I can use that on Saturdays. So, but that is this Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be looking at Gulfstream Park this Saturday. Um, so let's get back to the what I wanted to talk about here. And apparently, after 17 years, Sammy Sosa has admitted to mistakes and is set for a reunion with the Chicago Cubs. Um, Now, Sosa and the Cubs reconciled Thursday afternoon. Well, it became known on Thursday afternoon, I should say. I mean, just the way that they worded it on here. They ended their 17-year estrangement after the former slugger apologized for making mistakes during his playing career. Um, Now, as we all know, Sammy Sosa had been linked to performance-enhancing drugs for decades. He stopped short of directly admitting to PED use in a statement released on Thursday. Um, the former National League MVP said that at times throughout his playing career, he did whatever I could to recover from injuries in an effort to keep my strength up to perform over 162 games, and added, "I never broke any laws, but in hindsight, I made mistakes and I apologize." Um, and that's the thing. Um, and I say this about me at Redacted Company, and you may not have uh, a rule that breaks a law or anything, but it's expectations that your company has as an employee of that company. Like I've told you numerous times, and I'll say it again. When the Charlottesville riots happened, my redacted company were looking at the photos and things like that, and they saw a T-shirt that looked like it was the redacted company logo. So they did an exhaustive investigation, and it was, I wouldn't say it was unfounded. They couldn't do anything with it with the pictures that they had for whatever reason, whether they were too grainy or they couldn't completely make out the logo. But you do have um, the pictures were inconclusive. That's probably the word I was looking for there. So even though you may not necessarily be breaking laws per se, even on your time, even if you have a redacted company shirt or a Bleacher Brothers shirt, let's say, in my case, you're a representative of redacted company or whoever you're employed with or Bleacher Brothers. So that's what I would say to you guys is it's not just on the clock, it's off the clock. So, that's and you are bound by the code of conduct as well as collective bargaining and everything else. So, because they expect you to act a certain way, especially if you even accidentally have a shirt with the redacted logo on it. So, um, but in Sammy's case, he's saying he never broke any laws. Um, I don't think, you know, and here's the thing: are certain steroids legal? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be one. But if you have cocaine or something like that, that's something totally different. Um, but you got to remember, Major League Baseball did not test for steroids for a long time. So, and they did do testing at the beginning, but they were like, well, we're going to do testing, but we're not going to punish the players. Well, the players still got punished because even though it was Captain Obvious that Barry Bonds was on the juice because not only did the rest of his body blow up, his head blew up to match his ego. Mark McGuire was always huge, and um, uh, and I remember the one interview that um, Mark McGuire gave at his locker room in St. Louis. At his locker, he had a bottle of androstenedione on there, and guess what? It was a banned substance in MLB, but when they did the interview, it wasn't necessarily banned at that time. So so what may but what Sosa's saying here, if I'm trying to get it out of my mouth properly, it may not have been against the rules, but you know, uh, I mean, he admits making mistakes, whether it's a moral thing or he was taking it despite the fact that they were starting the drug testing process. Probably figure, well, if I took it, then they can't do anything with me for this year, but I have to clean up a little bit, or I got to find that other steroid which won't show up on tests because a lot of players are still taking stuff. It's just that, okay, what won't show up in my piss test? So, um, but he did say that at times through his playing career, he did whatever he could to recover from injuries in an effort to keep his strength up to perform over 162 games. And Mike says it perfectly: perception is reality. And we'll get into some of the things that happened after the fact here. Because if you think about it, um, because steroids, even though they are performance enhancing, the intention is to heal quicker. It's just that the way that athletes use them for the most part is got to build mass, got to do this, got to do that. So you're going to have people that abuse steroids because they can make themselves stronger, make themselves faster, whatever. Um, Now, minutes after the apology was released, the Cubs invited Sosa to their winter fan convention for the first time since he retired in 2007. So, so I guarantee you that winter carnival fan fest thing, I'm sure it's going to be packed. I'm sure it's packed beforehand, but it will be interesting to see how the fans react to him because of the fact that I mean, like some of the things that they mention here. And Mike was talking about the perceptions of reality. Sosa is one of a group of players, including Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire, which I mentioned already, who haven't been elected to the Hall of Fame in part because of their ties to the steroid era, which is essentially 1994 to 2004. 2004 was when more stringent testing began. Um, I think even if Mark McGwire was not perceived to be a steroid user, even though we knew he was, I will still say that he would not have been in the Hall of Fame because he only had 1,400 hits or something like that. Let me double check that just so I can get you the exact number here because I still have Baseball Reference up here. Um, Mark McGwire, for 583 home runs, only had 1,626 RBIs. So, of those hits, 252. Right, so let me get my calculator out here. So he had 1,626 hits, 583 homers. That's 1043. Somehow got 6 triples and 252 doubles. So he had 785 singles, 252 doubles, 6 triples, 583 homers. Now he did have years where he was injured as well. So, um, but the one thing to remember is he did take advantage um, of the steroid era. I mean, he went from 39 home runs in 95 to 52 in 96. He had 58 in 97 between Oakland and St. Louis, and then hit 70 in 1998, then 65 in 99, and then he tailed off at 32 and 29 and ended his career after 2001. But there's definitely not enough hits for him to get into the Hall of Fame, even if he did have all those homers. Um, so that would definitely be something that you can look at with McGuire and say, well, not only is it the steroids, it's the fact that he didn't get many hits. Barry Bonds, for example, even with having 762 home runs, um, 2,935 hits, 601 doubles, 77 triples, 514 stolen bases, 2,558 walks. So, I mean, if he, I mean, you could argue with Barry Bonds that if he did not uh, let his ego get the best of him and take steroids, he probably would have already been in the Hall of Fame. It's just that he started taking stuff, and next thing you know, he's doing too well, and you're like, things ain't right here. Sammy Sosa, 2,480 hits with the 609 home runs. Um, he had 2 seasons of 60 plus home runs, and neither year he won the home run title. But some of the things here about this is um, now Sosa testified in front of Congress in 2005 and denied using PEDs, although the New York Times reported after that he had tested positive in 2003. But that was that period of time where, okay, well, we're going to test, but we're going to have this period where we're not necessarily going to have any punishment because we want to get this set up to the point where the Players Association and the union and even the league and the union and even the government getting involved with this. You do have to make sure things are what you want it to be because this isn't something you can just say drug testing begins now. This is something that has to be agreed upon with the Players Association and the league. It is a bargainable thing. So um, now Sosa, McGuire, and Bonds all fell well short of the Hall of Fame election in 2022 on their 10th and final ballot appearance. Um, Sosa received a high of 18.5% support in the final year, but you need 75% to get in. So um, now, if Sosa were to make the Hall of Fame, it has to go through the Contemporary Players Committee, which meets next December. So Cubs ownership did hint at the need for an apology from Sosa before welcoming him back into the organization or even inviting him to an off-season team function. Um, Cubs chairman Tom Ricketts said, "We appreciate Sammy releasing his statement and for reaching out. No one played harder or wanted to win more. Nobody wanted, nobody's perfect, but we never doubted his passion for the game and the Cubs. It's an understatement to say that Sammy is a fan favorite. And we'll see what happens when he comes back to the Chicago limelight. going to these functions, you know, um, and the convention that they're talking about here. We plan on inviting him to the 2025 Cubs convention. And while it's on short notice, we hope that he can attend. We're all ready to move forward together. Um, and he has 545 of those home runs with the Cubs. Um, Sosa said in a statement, "We can't change the past, but the future is bright. In my heart, I've always been a Cub, and I can't wait to see the Cubs fans again." But my question is, are we going to see dark skinned Sammy Sosa, or are we going to see honky Sammy Sosa? Because I am going to pull this up here, and you'll see what I mean here if I can find it. Um, and it may just be vitiligo or whatever the disease is, but you'll get the idea of what I mean, because it may just been that he bleached his skin as well. You never know. He might have did a Michael Jackson thing. But this is what I'm talking about here. There we go. You see the before and after there. I apologize. It's a smaller picture than what I was hoping it was. You see the darker Sammy Sosa when he played for the Cubs, and then you see the much lighter skinned Sammy Sosa after um, after he'd been retired a few years. So, um, you know, I know I joke around with that, but and you shouldn't really joke around about some things like that. Um, but yeah, he did have that uh, vitiligo thing, or at least I think it's vitiligo, or maybe he just bleached his skin. Who knows? But um, I'm not trying to make fun of him, but um, it is what it is. So looks like the Chargers are driving right now, down 24-13. Um, One thing that did come up in the news today, and I'm sure Mike saw my comment on this today. Um, Fox 29 here in Philadelphia, and the one thing is, at least my perception of local news, I don't, at least I don't think so. And some local affiliates may trend just like the national news networks trends toward their political leanings and all that. But um, one thing that Donald Trump did say that he was going to do once he got into office is eliminate daylight savings time. I posted this today, and the reason why I did it, um, I did say, Fox 29 said dramatic changes. Staying on standard time would mean a change for sunrise and sunset times. Um, and this is part of my argument why I would like to see daylight savings stay, even though I understand it. And this picture is going to be a little bit better to show here. I'll go into the article here, but um, I think this will work a little bit better. Yeah, it does. So, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Yeah, I can. Good. There we go. That's all I had to do. So, this is um, sunrises in June, give or take a couple of minutes. Sunrises and sunsets without daylight savings time. Now, the one thing I will tell you guys is, being a weather nerd, um, in the summertime, there is well, from the winter solstice, which is I think Saturday or Sunday. Um, from then until the summer solstice, we gain time with the we get a couple of minutes of extra sunlight every day. So what happens here is when you get closer to the North Pole, that change is greater because the angle of the Earth to the sun, it's more towards the northern hemisphere. That's why it's warmer. So as a result, you have the the sun rising earlier and setting earlier. Now, me and Mike are in Philadelphia, and here's the argument that I have about this. If we get rid of daylight savings time altogether, sunrise is at 4:32 a.m. and will set at 7:30 p.m. Now, the one thing I would say is, and this was part of my argument when I made a comment on Facebook when somebody commented, because, oh, I work shift work. So did I. And I know this from even staying up all night while I was um, staying up all night on my nights off because, trying to keep yourself in that cycle so you don't veer off into different sleep cycles and not being able to fall back asleep and all that stuff. The sunrise, according to this graphic, is 4:32 a.m. in Philadelphia. If you think about it, the first sunlight from dawn will probably be about 3:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock. And trust me, I know this because um, I remember going out of my backyard at my old house, and when I would go into the backyard for a minute, you would look out towards the school that isn't there anymore, and you could start seeing the skies getting lighter about 4:30, 4:15 during daylight savings time, which would be about an hour before the sunrise, because if you move the clocks forward, that 4:32 becomes 5:32. Um, Seattle, because they're so far north, they get 16 hours of sunlight. Their sunrise would be at 4:11 a.m. and sunset would be 8:11 p.m. Now, it is a bit of a mind fuck when you go out there, even with um, daylight savings time in the summer, because the sun's setting at like 9 o'clock and it doesn't get completely dark till like 9:30, 9:45. But but it's something that I would say to you guys to consider. Do you want to deal with the sun setting an hour later during the summer, or do you want to deal with the sun rising so early that it messes with your internal clock? Because like Milwaukee, the sun will rise at 4:12 at at the first day of summer or thereabouts. Um, Sunrise at Detroit 4:55, but they're more on the they're on the western part of the Eastern time zone. But um, so but just to give you a background on this here, just to give you some background to why I'm mentioning this here. Now, Donald Trump says he wants to eliminate daylight savings time, calling it inconvenient and very costly. I disagree. I feel that all you're doing is you're shifting the usage of energy for the most part an hour later. At least that's what I think for the most part. So, instead of the lights going on at 7:30 for the most part, if you turn them on exactly when sunset occurs, the sunset actually goes at 8:30. But what makes it more costly, if you think about it, is because with everything with, you know, if you want to call it global warming, if you want to call it climate change, or you just want to call it hot as fuck summer, you still have a lot of, uh, you do have some very hot summers. So it's actually the air conditioning which dries everything up as opposed to when the sun rises and sun sets. Now, granted, we're not a farming society anymore, so we're not relying on that either. So um, Trump said on the 13th, the Republican Party will use its best efforts to eliminate daylight saving time, which has a small but strong constituency, but shouldn't. Daylight savings time is inconvenient and very costly to our nation. Most countries do not observe daylight savings time. And we'll go back to me here. Uh, Hi. um, for those that do, the date the clocks change vary. So that's important as well. And Mike did see my post because I mentioned that, the people that complain the most are those that have problems when November comes around. You move the clocks back. After a day or two, you adjust, okay? Grow a pair. Um, Most countries, for those that do, the dates the clocks change, creating a complicated tapestry of changing time differences. Arizona and Hawaii don't change their clocks at all. Um, Setting clocks forward an hour in the spring and back an hour in the fall is intended to maximize daylight during summer months. Hello? Because you're going to be wasting sunlight because of the fact that you're going to be sleeping and it's going to be 3, 4 hours into daylight when you wake up already, if you think about it. Um, so if this change occurs, the change has been subject to scrutiny, and then if enacted, could mean a dramatic change to sunrise and sunset times. And I mentioned the how it will eliminate how daylight savings time elimination will affect sunrises and sunsets. Um, Standard time is based on the natural position of the sun relative to the Earth. Um, when the U.S. is on standard time, the sun rises and sets according to the clock time that aligns more closely with the Earth's natural rhythm. Meanwhile, daylight savings time moves the clock forward an hour during spring and summer months, effectively shifting the day forward. It results in later sunsets compared to standard time and slightly later sunrises. Um, if daylight savings time was eliminated and the U.S. stayed on standard time, sunrise would occur earlier in the summer, as I mentioned before, which would create that 3 a.m. first glimpse of light. Uh, if you're used to a 7 a.m. Sunrise under daylight savings time, it would happen at 6 under standard time. Um, in addition, sunset would also occur earlier, so that 8 p.m. sunset would occur at 7. Um, um, so if we stayed in standard time, um, if we stay in standard time, the winter sunrises and sunsets would stay the same. It's just that the summer we would have a hard time dealing with that because, at least in the beginning, the first couple of years, because we're not moving the clock forward. Um, um, the main impact of the evenings with daylight savings time 365 with no daylight savings time 365 days a year would be that evenings would fall darker earlier in the day, but mornings would be brighter earlier in the day. Um, Some health groups, including the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, have said it's time to do away with time switches and that sticking with standard time year round aligns better with the sun and human biology. Um, but until this happens, experts suggest getting to bed a little earlier in the day, leading up to daylight savings time to help gradually adjust the time change. Other lawmakers have previously proposed getting rid of the time change altogether. Um, a prominent recent attempt, a now stalled bipartisan bill named the Sunshine Protection Act, would ensure Americans would no longer have to change their clocks twice a year. And while the goal wasn't to enact said bill by 2023, things haven't gone to plan. Um, Marco Rubio, the U.S. Senator from Florida, he released a statement in support of making daylight savings time permanent. It's time to lock the clock and stop enduring the ridiculous and antiquated practices of switching our clocks back and forth. Let's finally pass my Sunshine Protection Act and end the need to fall back and spring forward for good. But there is one problem with permanent daylight savings time as well. If you go daylight savings time permanently, the kids are going to school in the dark in a lot of places. Like, for example, in Seattle, you know, the sun rises tomorrow. Let me pull up this up and I will uh, let me pull this up here so I can go through this here. All right, so in Philadelphia, the sun rises at 7:18. Well, if the clocks stay permanently at daylight savings time, then guess what? The sun rises at 8:18 and the kids are going to school in the dark. And you know how kids like to shoot out between cars and what park cars and stuff like that to cross streets. So it is dangerous as well. Um, New York City 7:16, so not much of a difference. Las Vegas 6:47, they would be 7:47 right tomorrow if we had permanent daylight savings. Um, Seattle, their sunrise tomorrow is at 7:54 a.m., which means that the sun doesn't rise till 8:54 if we have permanent daylight savings. So because they're further north, they get less sun per day this time of the year. I mean, they only get 8.5 hours of sunlight because they're further north. Remember, this time of the year, the further north you go, the less sun you get. And if you're in the northern reaches of Alaska, you get almost zero sunlight. It's just the way things are with science and everything. So, um, but I think when you make this decision, whether you go and eliminate daylight savings time or you make daylight savings time permanent or you don't do anything with it, you have to take into account even the little things like kids going to school. Because guess what? You do have, um, it's more than just the adults, it's the kids that have to go to and from school. We know how kids don't like to cross it corners, for example. So, but we'll. I mean, this is something that's going to probably come up, and I'm sure Trump will try to do an executive act. "Look, no more daylight savings time. Fuck you. All that. Um, but so those are the stories I have right now. Um, so since this is the last show of 2024, I do want to talk a little about 24 and look ahead to 25. So, um, the one thing I did because I was trying to write an article that was not related to sports, but I wanted people to understand my thinking of 2024. And think of it as Jerry Maguire with that mission statement or whatever he wrote the manifesto that he wrote in Jerry Maguire. Think of it a little bit like that, or think of it like the first day in class, whether it's high school, college, whatever. You get that syllabus and you get to hear what your teacher's expectations and stuff are. Well, I had my expectations, and even though I'm not a person that believes in goals, um, or I should say, I don't believe in resolutions because resolutions fail. Because you start thinking, oh, got to get to the gym, got to do this. And like, guess what? After 3 weeks, you're not going to the gym anymore. Uh, I set goals because I've always felt that if you're going to make goals, you realize that it's just not something that's going to change overnight. It's something you got to work on week after week after week. And the one thing I wanted to do was expand my brand, whatever you want to call it. And I have improved the brand. I think no matter what I do, I'll always be trying to improve my brand and trying to expand on it. Um, I feel like I can always improve. I feel like I could do something a little bit better. Um, for this week, you can say time management because I was late all 3 nights this week. Well, Monday, that was food related. Tuesday was because of the situation with the washroom, and yesterday was because I gave time to AJ for his show because I didn't want to go head to head with him or anything like that. Even though you can do two YouTube shows at the same time, I feel like everything is going as I had planned. There's going to be bumps in the road and things like that, but I will say that I'm excited for 2025. Um, the biggest thrill that I had was getting to be on Radio Row with Tony Bruno, Miss Robin, AJ. Play Action Real was there. Chef Tom was there. Angel Martinez. Um, Stephen Luker. I'm sure a few others that I'm missing. But I will say this. I did look for the video of what I'm going to mention. I did not find it. But it wasn't anything I was really looking for until I was like, well, some people are doing their review of 2024. I'm like, last minute, I'm like, well, is it still on there? It wasn't on YouTube. I didn't look in Facebook or anything like that because once I got to that point, I'm like, the heck with it. If I don't see it on YouTube, I'm not gonna find it. I think the biggest thrill is getting to be on Radio Row. Um, got to meet um, Andrew Perloff, the guy from they used to be on the Dan Patrick show. He now has his own morning show. Got to meet him. Duncan Dad was also there, so got to mention him as well. Um, got to meet him. Got pictures with Kevin Harlan. Got a picture with Greg Papa, and there was somebody else I got a picture with. I forget who, but I think the biggest highlight that I had while I was out there, besides just being there, was the fact, and seeing the cavalcade of celebrities and stuff that were going to Bruno's desk and me helping out with video and audio and different things I was doing. I think the biggest thrill I had for the whole year was the fact that Greg Papa, who is Gary Papa's brother, for those that in Philadelphia that remember Gary Papa, Unfortunately, we lost him way too young. And Greg said that Gary Papa was a super genius. Um, Tony and Greg were talking about the game itself and the overtime rules, and I'm there because me, with the brain like a sponge that I tell you about, where I keep all this useless information, and charges have just taken the lead, by the way. Um, I was explaining the new overtime rules in the event that it was happening. So I'm running the video on Thursday or Friday because people were getting sick and shit like that. So nobody really could do it. We were behind everything. So I ended up, I raised my hand, just to say, hey, I got something to add here. And I'm explaining the overtime rules that we had not seen yet in the NFL playoffs, this new iteration of the overtime rule where both teams get a possession no matter if there's a touchdown or an interception or a fumble. So either way, I think that I was explaining the rules with everybody that day. I thought that was pretty cool because I'm talking to Tony Bruno on his show, and I'm talking to the voice of the radio voice of the 49ers who has a Philadelphia connection, and we're talking about that. So, but that was a fun thing there. Getting to go to Vegas, getting to hang out with and meeting a lot of the guys that I only seen in video. Also, Robbie Listella was there. Um, we had a couple of interns from UNLV that helped us out. Um, um, just trying to think off the top of my head, all these, trying to give everybody um, their due. Um, and also getting also eligible at the ground, um, making that a Saturday staple on Bleacher Brothers. And whether it's AJ, whether it's Frank, we even had an appearance by Jeff DeForest, Defo. He came on for the Breeders' Cup, and the video went bad, or the sound went bad on the video, because the one thing I was trying to do is when we were doing the show, the one thing I was doing was because I was doing that sidecast, I was like, here's what we talked about earlier today on the Bleacher Brothers, on the Also Eligible show, and I played that video. So I think I'm starting to network a little bit with people that I didn't expect I would network with, like for example, Jeff DeForest and everybody with Bleacher Brothers and everything like that. So, and that's part of growing the brand is building your network. And that's something I would say to people like that because I've had people ask me a couple of times, "What do I do? What do I do to start a stream, a podcast, uh, get on Twitch, get on here, get on there?" The most important thing is just get it out there. And if you're young enough, I will say do something where you can get something on your resume. Because I tell them that I couldn't add to my resume while I was in Drexel because I couldn't afford taking a leave of absence on taking an internship because I had all my bills. I'm helping my parents out in their bills. I couldn't afford all that and also work as an intern. Now, what made it that I couldn't do the internship was that because it was a paid internship, I couldn't get credit for it in school because it had to be an unpaid internship. So because of that, I could still have done it. probably getting minimum wage where the rate that I was making back about 5, 10 years ago wouldn't have cut it. So I was like, and I was told by one of the managers, you can do it, you can go on leave, if you really wanted to, but I couldn't afford it. I'm the only breadwinner because I live alone. It wasn't like I have like I have, you know, go get me a beer bitch lady, you know. You know what I mean by that. I have that sound drop somewhere. Go get me a beer, bitch. I think that's from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But um but yeah, so things are really looking good for next year. Um the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network app is live on both Apple and Android. So if you go to Google Play or you go to Apple, the Apple Store, you can download that app and you can play what's on there right now. Right now, it's all music. AJ has his 80s music on there. Um, but starting the 6th, we will be doing our shows live on there as well. So another outlet to watch the show or listen to the show, I should say. Um, I will definitely say if you're looking, um, I'm looking forward to this. Um, we are growing, and there's some things I won't talk about online or in public about this. Like if I'm talking to Mike privately, I'll mention a couple of things, but I'm not necessarily going to mention it to its public consumption. Um, but like for example, a lot of stuff in my life here, like about this show that's affecting me and me only. Yeah, I'll let you behind the curtain. I don't give a shit. But something that's more about all of us at Bleacher Brothers, that's something different. I think that's also Captain Obvious that you don't want to mention some of the things there. And I'm also a believer that, you know, big things that occur, you don't want to necessarily um you don't necessarily want to jinx yourself. So, but I will definitely say that things are looking up for Bleacher Brothers, things are looking up for me with my brand as well. And I appreciate everybody who took the time, no matter um what it is. And I'm looking forward to going down the Gulfstream Park next month. Possibly going to the Breeders' Cup next October, next fall. Um, and Mike says I have a very good brand, and I appreciate that. And you know, it's not perfect. Um, I mean, I know I vent a little too much on social media from time to time, but you know, but I am trying to build things and go from there. So um, so yeah, so I do appreciate that, Mike, and I am always trying to build. And the one thing is with me, I admit I work way too much. Not just my real job, but also some of the other side projects I have, and it's just the way that I am. Um, I'm the type of person where I just don't know how to slow down sometimes, and I'm just afraid if it comes to time where I do retire, 65, whatever. I just have a feeling that I'm going to be so bored, I'm not going to know what to do with myself. And that's why I'm always trying to find something to do because guess what? I have to keep myself busy because I am ADD, ADHD, hyperactive, whatever you want to call it. So, but I do appreciate everybody who has watched and listened to the show, whether it's in the audio form, watching live on YouTube, on Twitch, on X, live, on demand video, anything, because I do see the numbers. I'm not worried too much about numbers. I probably should be, but it's about getting getting my stuff out there. And uh, I'm a firm believer that you never know if something will happen where they say, "Hey, I like your stuff," and then I have to do a quick Google search and say, "Is this guy legit or not?" So I'd rather have that happen than a bunch of people telling me that you suck. But that's the case here. So we are 20 minutes away from um, Captain Ron. Um, mm, 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 Let me just find one thing here. Uh, the Dirty Dozen College Football Anarchy is scheduled for 11 o'clock. So as soon as he goes live, we will raid over to the Bleacher Brothers Twitch. So that is something we're going to do here. Um, so let's get to the Philly Fade here, and we have a game that's going on right now. And right now, if the score holds the way it is right now, we're going to have our first push of the year in terms of the Philly Fade. Um, so as you all know, I have been red hot since the calendar went to November. Maybe it was because of the clocks going back, but whatever you want to believe, um, once November came around, we started hitting with our picks. Now, have I played every one of them? No, but like the one thing I tell you, and one thing I also say is, if you have a gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. Um, I will always tell you, bet within your means. It's okay. It's okay if you don't have the money to wager. Just don't be the type of person that will piss your money away. Then you don't have money to pay your bills or get food or anything like that. But I turned the 1-800-GAMBLER thing into something more personal. Set when you hear gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. It's like it turns into a joke. But I think that, and this is the one thing that I will tell you guys, is I will turn it more personal in a way where it's more than just, if you have a gambling problem, dial 1-800-GAMBLER. I will turn it more of a personal thing because, you know, and I will tell you, it's okay that if you want to wager, it's okay to bet $5 instead of 10, 25, 50, or whatever the big boys are wagering. That ticket will cash just as much as the big boys ticket. And one thing I'll say is, bet what you feel comfortable with. So, um, so let's get to the fade here, and we're going to look at a couple of college football games here, and we're also going to go with the NFL for this weekend. So just like last week I went 4-2. I had South Dakota State -19. That was that game where I was struggling to find a game because it was that weird week where apparently we did have a bowl game, but we didn't have it. Um, uh, at South Dakota State -19, that was a winner. Army Navy over 39. I went against the trend of all the games that went under the total. That was a winner. Um, then in the NFL, I had Jacksonville money line. They lost to the Jets. Denver -4.5 on Sunday. They won. They came back to win. I had the Eagles -5.5. They won by 14. That was a win. At that point, I was finally making a profit after being down 20.92 units. I made up 21 units and was 0.24 units above zero since I reinstituted this segment back in August. Then we lost with Seattle. We're at -0.76. The overall record, 57, 61, and 0, 483 win percentage. And the reason why the record is like that, and you have a positive positive units there. If that loss was a win, is because that I do take money lines once in a while when I tell you that certain teams are going to win. Why take the point spread, take the money line, or I just feel like you know I will just tell you flat out, I just like this team to win. So so that's why we're at that position. Just to give you a summary, in November we went 21-12. December, right now we're 11-4. So the last 2 months we are 32-16. We are winning 2 out of every 3 picks that hit. 2 out of every 3 picks would hit. So, like Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Actually, it's fucking awesome right now, and we are at positive 20.16 units since since the calendar went to November. So you know what's going on there. So just give you a little summary there. Then we're going to go over to DraftKings. DraftKings is what I use for um, my official picks. So the one thing I would tell you guys, the one thing I would say as well is, if you're FanDuel, DraftKings, Bet365, hey, you want to sponsor me? Hit me up, Joe at BleacherBrothers.com, and maybe we can get a nice partnership here because I'd like to show my screen. Uh, and Captain Ron is here. Welcome aboard. Uh, Following the Joe Quill Show, College Football Anarchy discusses what many call the Heisman screw job. Bolts are up 3 on Denver with under 8 minutes left. I have the game on here to my left, which, it looks like I'm pointing to my right on the camera. But we could be getting our first push of the season after 115 picks or whatever it is. So, but Ron, welcome in. Just doing my final segment here, the Philly Fade. And just to let you guys know, I will be, for those that are on Twitch tonight, and if you're watching on X and you're watching on YouTube, this is something I can do very easily. I just click the button and I send all you guys over to the Bleacher Brothers Twitch because I'm using my personal Twitch. So as soon as I see that alert that he's live, I will end the show. Well, I'll be done in a couple minutes anyway. I'll send you over and we'll continue with that. So those that are watching on YouTube that prefer to stay on YouTube, just go, especially if you're watching on the Bleacher Brothers YouTube, you can just leave my video and go to his. But with Twitch, I can send you to the next person. Boom. So that's what we do there. Um, so let's get to my picks here for the weekend. Let's begin with um, just want to check one thing here. They don't have anything there. Let's go college football here. Um, and let me draw up the screen here. There we go. And yeah, that's a little too big. I'm not going to look at the bowl game. So Ohio and Jacksonville State, no, no, no. I'm not going to touch Indiana Notre Dame. Um, if you remember last Saturday's game on last Thursday's show, I told you to take South Dakota State because it is going to be cold as hell up there, and Incarnate Word is a Texas school and they're not used to the cold. So I am pulling up the weather for State College, Pennsylvania. So for Saturday, they are calling for a high of 27 degrees and a low of 11. So you're talking about probably low to mid 20s when the game starts. And you're going to have a northwest wind 10 to 15 miles an hour. And even though they played an weather game against Clemson. They're going to be playing in an ice box or what's going to seem like an ice box to them. Penn State, not only are they playing at home, they're playing within their own elements. They have body acclimation, you name it. So, as much as it pains me, because Mike knows my disdain for Penn State and everything, I'm going to take Penn State, give the 8.5. I think Penn State wins by at least 2 touchdowns here. And it's not a slight on SMU, but the Smooths just, um, they're not going to be used to that cold and they're not going to function as well. And I think Penn State is going to win this rather easily and advance to face Boise State in the quarterfinals at the Fiesta Bowl. Um, Ohio State plays Tennessee. Um, I don't know why I'm looking ahead like that, but um, is it me or does it seem like that the Ohio State coach is in trouble? You know, you lose to Michigan 4 straight times, you're going to be on the hot seat. But can he? But is he championship or bust? Or does he get a little bit of a reprieve if they get to, like, let's say, the semifinals? I think there's going to be some added pressure here on Ohio State to win. And also, Tennessee, even though they are a SEC school, and I'm doing finger quotes here and you can't see it, so I don't know why I just did that, but um, Tennessee, it isn't like they're a team. They're not like they're the Florida Gators playing in the extreme cold. They're playing in a cold weather site, but I think that they would acclimate a little bit better than what SMU would going to State College. There's going to be an upset. It's not going to be Clemson and Texas. It's definitely not SMU Penn State. Some people are saying Indiana can pull the upset here. I'm just steering clear of that game. I think Tennessee is going to upset Ohio State here, and that's going to grease grease the tracks for Ryan Day's dismissal. And I am taking Tennessee in an upset at plus 235 there to win that game outright. So my college picks for this weekend, I got Penn State minus 8.5 points. That is at minus 110. Tennessee money line 235. And those are my two games for the weekend for the college. And we'll get to the NFL here in a second. Um, and don't mind me, I post them on my friend SJ's Discord. Part of it is that I can go back and catch up with the spreadsheet because I tend to forget that I have spreadsheets that I work on. So those are my two college picks. So let me clear that. Um, I'm just taking a peek at the games for tomorrow. Hmm, nothing there. Uh, Nothing there worth looking at. Okay, so let's go to the NFL here. Um, and let's begin with, well, the Eagles game we're doing last, as we always do. Um, let's begin with Arizona and Carolina. Once again, we're talking about a cold weather game. Well, actually, before I get to that, Tennessee, Texas, SMU, and Indiana. Don't be surprised if karma makes an appearance this weekend in both college and pros. I agree, but I I'm using the same tactic that I used last week with South Dakota State over Incarnate Word. And I know what Ron's saying when I mentioned the words incarnate word, not incarnate wood. I know what Captain Ron is thinking when I mention incarnate word. He's saying,
Who the fuck is that guy?
and I had to run that. Uh, so let's begin with Arizona and Carolina. Carolina had a bit of a setback last week, losing to um, the Cowboys. Cowboys showed some life, and they play so well on the road, but they can't win for shit on the road, meaning Cowboys. But I personally feel that the Carolina Panthers are a team that could be, I mean, that are better than their record indicates. I think that they have a quarterback who's finally on track. You got the quarterback whisperer and Dave Canales. Uh, Arizona today, Kyler Murray said, "Oh, what's the weather going to be like in Carolina? It's going to be 35 degrees." He's already worried about the weather. So, cold weather game. Everything is leaning Carolina here. And I'll tell you one thing: do not go for the +5. Go for the win. Go for some huevos there. Carolina plus 185 on the money line, winning that game. Um, Minnesota goes to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. I haven't seen is um I should know this because he's my quarterback on my fantasy teams. Is I think Geno Smith might be playing on Sunday. Let me just double check that for you here because I have him on one of my three teams. I just don't know which one. Uh, there we go. No, where the fuck is he? And yes, I do need a producer. Um, oh, I have three quarterbacks on that one team. No wonder why. He suffered a knee injury, but his status is putting his status in doubt. Um, he's received positive test results from testings in the days following the contest, and he's now logged back-to-back full practices. So signs point to him starting for the Sunday game. However, Minnesota, even though they got to make that trip, it's not as bad as if they had to go. Um, if they're like a team like Philly that's got to go 5.5 hours on a plane to Seattle, and trust me, I've done it. Um, I like Minnesota here. Let's take them at -3 at -112. I try to avoid VIGs that are a number higher than 112, but for the sake of this, why not? Um, Tampa takes on the Dallas Cowboys. Tampa had a huge win over the Chargers, and you wonder, was it the Chargers looking ahead to Thursday night? Was it the fact that Tampa Bay has their weapons back over the last couple of weeks? Things like that. Dallas has only won one game at home, I believe. Let me double check that for shits and giggles. Dallas is 1-6 at home this year, and the only win they won was against the equally pathetic New York Football Giants. Um, Personally, I think that the losing at home continues. I think Tampa Bay wins this, and I think they win it rather easily here because they're playing for a division spot. Cowboys are fighting for their playoff lives. Um, I think that they're going to be out of the playoffs after this game. They will fall to 6-9, 69. That's nice. And let's go with the Bucks -4 at -108, and then the Monday night game. Who cares? Let's go back up to the top here. and I'm tempted to take Chicago, but I'm not going to. Um, but here's the I always pick the Eagles games, and smart bettors, they stay away from their favorite teams as much as possible. I just do it just for shits and giggles more than anything else. But I've been riding the Eagles, and I've been right a lot more than I've been wrong this year. Um, but um, but the Eagles are a 3.5 point favorite in uh, um, down in DC. Well, Landover, Maryland. Eagles have a chance to win the division with the win here. I'm disappointed that this game did not get flexed to Sunday Night Football, but it is what it is, or even Monday Night Football. You know, but this is a game that's going to be a tricky game, and in a way, you would think touchdown Chargers, and I'll take the Eagles here. I think that they're the better team. They've been laser focused since they came back from the bye week, and they've had a very healthy roster. And I think that they win this and win it by at least 7 points here. So I'll take the Eagles minus 3.5 at minus 110. So my NFL picks: Carolina money line 185, Vikings -3 at minus 112, Buccaneers -4 at minus 108, and then the EAGLES Eagles plus 3.5, minus 3.5 at minus 110. So yeah, Gino's list is probable. It's basically what I was saying, but I missed that, so I apologize, Ron. So that is going to be it for this show. Just a reminder: also eligible will still run on Saturdays while I'm on vacation. Well, vacation, finger quotes. But we will do also eligible this Saturday, next Saturday, and I'm going to do a special one on Thursday because it is opening day at Santa Anita. It is the traditional opening day where they have the Malibu and they have 3, 4 other stakes races. So we'll do that as well. So I do appreciate everybody who has taken the time to watch this show and listen to the show, whether it is um, whether it is live or at your own leisure. I appreciate each and every one of yous, and I hope that 2025 is great for you. Hope everybody has a great Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, anything else that you celebrate. Even Festivus for the rest of us. Hope you have fun with that as well, and hopefully you get your grievances out before 2025. But those that are on Twitch, I am going to send you over to the Bleacher Brothers page, so stick around for that. And I am going on a slight break here. Going to take a vacation week, and we will do it live again here on the Joe Quill Show on Thursday, January 2nd. That'll be at 9 o'clock. So uh, make sure to join me then. Follow me on Twitter, on Instagram at Joe Quills, and want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever you celebrate, enjoy it. And thank you so much for being a part of my show and a part of Bleacher Brothers. So, those that are watching live on Twitch, I'm sending you to Captain Ron. As soon as I find him here, there we go. We are all set. Thank you so much. And I will catch you in the new year. Thank you so much. And I should have had music to send us out, but I will see you all in 2025, unless you catch me on the Bleacher Brothers show. So have a great night, everybody. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, all that stuff. Well, as Adam Sandler said, happy everything. Good night, and I will see you in the winner circle.
So probably the closest championship we have ever seen. We have. I'll be honest. We haven't beaten this since I believe 2009. The closest that this tournament, that this trophy, that this infamous mark of pride has actually been given out. And there was a lot of heated conversation, lots of massive debates in regards to two-way player from Colorado, Travis Hunter, and Boise State's